Hi, everyone, and welcome to this quick Datawizz tutorial. Today we're going to be reviewing the process of distilling a large language model. In this case, we're going to use some OpenAI models using the Datawizz platform from our actual production traffic, and then using that distilled model and deploying it onto the FireworksAI platform so you can run it at greater scale and great efficiency into production. So a quick review of the game plan for today. So we're going to go in an application where we assume there's already some sort of application. We'll be using a demo application today that uses AI to generate Python code, but obviously this can be any LLM use case. We'll assume that there's already requests being made to OpenAI. We'll show how to quickly add the Datawizz proxy in the middle and use that proxy to start logging requests. We'll also then show how to use those requests and logs collected to train and fine-tune a variety of different model architectures. And then finally, how to push those models onto the FireworksAI platform and start using them into production. So a lot to cover today. I'll try to make it quick and hope this is helpful. So without further ado, I'm going to switch in here into the Datawizz UI. This is the screen you'll get right after signing up to the Datawizz platform. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here, and I'll just call it FireworksAI Model Distillation Demo. I'm going to create the project. The first thing I'd want to go and do once we have the fresh project is connect it to our existing OpenAI account. So to do that, I'm going to go to providers. I'm going to go ahead and add a provider, OpenAI. I'll also just call it OpenAI. I'll use my OpenAI key over here and the base URL, which is just going to be api.openai.com. I'm going to add that provider. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some models. This can be any OpenAI supported models. If you don't see it here, just go to custom model and type it out. Or if you're using any of your own fine-tuned models on OpenAI, you can also type them out here. For now, I'm just going to stick to GPT-4o. So now we have our Datawizz account connected to OpenAI with the GPT-4o model. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead to endpoints and create a new endpoint. I'll just call it web app. Again, this is just a demo name for this tutorial. I'll go into managing it. I'll connect an upstream, and this is basically determining which model this endpoint is going to route LLM request to. For now, I'm just going to use OpenAI GPT-4o, and we're just going to have a single upstream, so all requests are going to get routed through to that model. In a more complex scenario, and there's other tutorials covering that, you can have multiple models and define more complex routing rules. But for now, we're just going to keep it simple, route everything to GPT-4o, and click add. And once you have that configured, you're going to get your integration snippet here. And as you can see, assuming you're already using the OpenAI official SDK, and this can be in JavaScript or Python, you can just drop in a different base URL, API key, and model identifier, and this will just start getting requests routed through the Datawizz platform. So not a lot of work needed to be done to start collecting those logs. And as soon as we connect that and start running requests, we're going to start seeing logs coming in. So I'm going to pause here for a second, get a few logs coming in, and be right back. Cool. So now that our application has been running for a little while, we can see that we've collected a couple of hundred logs over here. And you can see that the app or the Datawizz platform, for every request we make to an LLM, actually collects the full log and the response. We can actually go and see the full content. These are very simple requests, just some basic Python code generation, but obviously in a real production scenario, you might end up with longer or more complex logs, but you'll be able to see them very similarly here in this application. Now that we have those logs collected on the Datawizz platform, the next step is going to be to take those logs that were generated from the larger model and use them to fine-tune a smaller, more efficient model. So we're going to do that by heading over to the model section here. I'm going to create new model. I'll call it my Python model. For now, we're going to go with a relatively small Llama 3.2 1 billion model. You can define some filters to select which logs you want to use for that training run. We're just going to go ahead and use all of them. And then here you can configure a bunch of different training parameters. For now, I'm just going to keep the defaults, which are usually a good starting point, but you can go ahead and play or adjust those defaults as you start training. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Training. And what this will do behind the scene is it will spin up a machine, start training the model for us, and spit up a fully fine-tuned model that we can then go ahead and deploy into a production environment. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this part while this runs the training. Okay, so now we can see that the model is done training. You can obviously go and see all the training logs here. You have the model file, so you can feel free to download them if you want to run them elsewhere or do any experimentation locally with them. But what we're going to do now is quickly deploy this model onto the FireworksAI platform so that we can run it enjoying the Fireworks infrastructure, auto scaling, and fast inference in a production environment. So to do that, the first prerequisite is going to be that we're going to have to configure Fireworks as a provider in our Datawizz account. So this is going to be similar to what we did earlier with the OpenAI provider. We're going to go ahead to the provider section. I'm going to go ahead and click Add New Provider. I'll call it FireworksAI. I'll define it of the Fireworks type. And now we're going to need the key and account ID from Fireworks. To do that, I'm just going to go ahead and head over to my Fireworks dashboard. Account ID is simple. It's just going to be this this little string here, so I can copy it and pull that in. For the API keys, I'm just going to go ahead to the API key settings. I'll create a new API key. I'll call it demo deployment. I'll create that key. And again, I can go ahead and copy that key in. So now I have the provider deployed or connected, and I can go ahead and deploy the model. So I'll go ahead to the model section. I can see this model that we've trained again, and I'll click deploy model. Here I can select FireworksAI. I can configure a bunch of options here regarding the hardware and auto scaling for that model. So what's the minimum amount of machines we want to have running, the maximum, what kind of GPU we want to use, and so forth. I'll include a link to our docs and the Fireworks doc, which talk more in detail about these different parameters. And you can change them later using the Fireworks dashboard, which also has more detailed settings. For now, I'm just going to keep everything at the default, click deploy model, and this will create a deployment job. You can see that it shows up as pending. This is going to take a few minutes. I'm going to pause here, come back when it's done, and show you how to use that model in your application once it's deployed. Okay, so we can now see here that the model shows up as ready. We can also head over to the provider section and see that it shows up here. Again, status ready, which means we can go ahead and start using it. One thing you might want to do is actually go back to the provider section. You can select that model and go to the compare screen. That's just a good way to use some of your logs or just type in some inputs and run them against the model that we just deployed, that just making sure that everything works correctly. This actually takes that request, sends it over to FireworksAI to the new model that we just trained and deployed, and gets the response back to you. So you can see that everything is kind of playing nicely together. Now we can go ahead and actually start using this model, and Datawizz makes that very simple. So we can actually go back to that same endpoint that we created before, and this is the same endpoint to which we, so I actually had a couple of endpoints, to which we integrated the GPT-4o model previously. So we can go to that endpoint and just add a new upstream with this new model that we just trained and deployed to start routing requests over to it. So this upstream is able to define how requests are going to get routed. So I can go ahead and create a new upstream. I'm going to select FireworksAI and then select this new model that we just trained, and I'll set it as weight 1. And what this will allow us to do is weight kind of defines the priority or how traffic is divided across different models. Weight 0 is a fallback. So because there is now a weight 1 model, all traffic by default is going to go ahead to the FireworksAI model. And I do have here selected the model fallback option. I'll just make sure that that's actually saved. And what's that going to do is it's always going to route all traffic first to this new FireworksAI model. But if for any reason there is an outage, the model is down, we get an error response back, instead of cascading that failure back to the user, it's actually going to try again with the next up model. So there's going to be, in our case, that same GPT-4o that we have configured here. And if that succeeds, send that back to the user. So that can increase reliability by actually having some fallback between models. So now we have that model connected. This endpoint will start routing all new traffic to this new Fireworks model that we just deployed. And again, the beautiful thing here is you don't actually have to go and change anything in your code. So this all happens on the Datawizz side. The routing will automatically happen, and you can just enjoy this new, hopefully faster and cheaper model that you've trained on the Datawizz platform. And as the use case gets more complex, or you might start supporting different use cases and tasks in your application, you can actually define some more complex logic here. So for instance, if you remember looking at all the logs, we actually trained this model specifically on cogent tasks with Python. So if suddenly our app is going to start accepting JavaScript or Ruby and Rails code, for instance, this model may not be qualified to handle that, and we might still want to default back to the larger model. So I can actually go back to my endpoint here and configure the model to only accept requests with those tags that it was trained on. So I'm going to go ahead and edit it, and I'll say I only want to service requests that include the cogent task and language equals Python. And what this will do is only requests with those tags are going to actually be routed to this new model we trained and deployed. Any other tasks, if suddenly there is a code review task or a language equals JavaScript, it will still default back to the larger, more generic model that we have here, in this case, OpenAI GPT-4o. So this was a quick tutorial about training or distilling a model from GPT-4o into a smaller, more efficient model, deploying it to FireworksAI, and connecting it back into our applications. Hope this was helpful. And as always, if you have any questions or follow-up, feel free to reach out to us at hi@datawizz.ai.